everybody. I feel like it's been a long time since we have spoken or talked and all the things. I don't know why that is. I do a video weekly, but for whatever reason, I feel like it's been a while. So, 3-yard quilt, nothing interesting in that sense, except for the fact that I'm pushing this color palette insane, right? This looks insane. I know it does, but I'm thinking that this might be a vibe. I'm thinking that it might be. I think this might be a good one, but I'm not 100% sure. So, as I was saying, I think this is, I know it's crazy, but I'm crazy, and we know that. And if I'm not pushing the limits and boundaries, then I'm just the same as everybody else, and that's boring, and that would not be great. So, this is the newest book. It's Make It Modern. This was sent to me. I didn't have to purchase this. Yay, it's happening, right? All the things are happening. This one was designed by Fran, and the minute that I saw it, I knew that I had to do this guy right here. I knew that. I was like, this is my jam. It's all about tranquility. However, the way that I thought that it goes together and the way that it goes together is very, very different. Super different. This is one block, guys. This whole quilt is one block, which is very interesting. Technically, I think it's two, but kind of one. But anyway, now this is possibly the easiest quilt to do in this entire book if your fabric is non-directional. No problem. Easy peasy lemon squeezy, a beautiful, beautiful pattern. But because I'm me, I have to make this difficult. Matter of fact, I'm about to make this extremely difficult, and I'm not even sure that I'm going to get it right. So we shall see. So this fabric here is by Anna Maria Horner. You probably know it. It's the Echinacea. It's one of the most popular patterns ever done. I see it knocked off, which is terrible, but I see a lot of people using it. It's gorgeous. You've probably seen it. But look at the way that it runs. So this fabric is running, I should say the print is running this way. And the way that you would normally cut it would be, here's the selvages up there, you would cut it this way. However, with this pattern, because this is a directional print, I want these flowers to all run this way. I've always wanted to see this in a very narrow, the minute that I saw this, I knew that I wanted to see this in a rectangle. One, if you didn't know, rectangles are my thing. Like, I love a small, thin rectangle. I don't know why, I just do. So when I saw this pattern, I was like, what? Done. I already knew what I wanted to do. I'm just going to shoot for the moon or the stars or whatever the saying is. I'm going for it. All that means is that instead of cutting the fabric this way, I'm going to cut the fabric this way. And I've got to really think about what that means. So we know that this is a yard of fabric. A yard of fabric is 36 inches. Usually when you are cutting fabric from selvage to selvage, you get, I'd say, at least a usable 40, I'd say you get a good usable 40 or so inches, right? So I'm a little short, which means I'm going to have to adjust. So if you are trying to follow exactly what I'm doing, this is probably going to get a little tricky, and I've made a very non-complicated quilt complicated already. But again, you've met me before, so, you know, we're going to get what we get. We're not going to throw a fit. On this one, I would have been able to get about 42. I probably would have gotten about 42 usable inches. And so this is going to be strange the way that I do this, because I'm going to cut the other fabrics just as they say. But the first thing that I'm going to do is cut this one this direction. Now, I already know that when it comes to binding, I don't always cut the binding because I don't always want to use one of the 3 fabrics for the binding. Sometimes I want to jump out and do my own thing. This is going to be one of those cases where I jump out and do my own thing. So for the first fabric, I'm going to turn it on its side this way. I'm going to take off this edge, and then I'm going to cut what I need. And we're just going to hope for the best. So this is going to be my fabric number 1. I believe this cheetah is my fabric number 2. I love these two together. And it's not just a cheetah. It's a cheetah, a giraffe, a tiger, it's all the things. It's a lot happening here, but it's interesting. It's just not boring. So, like I said, I'm going to start with fabric number 1. I'm going to take off this edge. And then we are going to cut what we need and hope that it all works out. I am not 100% sure, but we will all find out together, because you guys know that I tell you all the things and I take you on my journey with me. But I've always wanted this fabric to look a certain way, and so now we're going to see. We're going to see if I can get it to do what I want. It looks like I've gotten all the selvage, which makes me happy. And now I'm going to flip it around because my open edges are here. And I'm going to cut the fabric this way. All right, let me check the directions and figure out what fabric number 1 needs to be cut at initially, and then we'll go from there. All right, so I took my first cut, and this is just gorgeous. It is so pretty. Now remember, my fabric is folded in half right now, and so I now have 2 strips. I'm going to cut one more, because the very first thing that it says to do is to cut these strips. You need 4 of them. It's possible that I'm going to need 5, but I'm going to show you guys what I'm going to do. Okay, so I've got my first 4 cuts here. Now, the next thing it tells me to do is cut for this smaller piece right here. So I just cut the pieces for these long strips. When you look at the picture, it looks like this is continuous. However, it's really, like I told you, one block that is facing this way, and then it comes back and it faces this way, which means I am going to have to be so careful about how I use this fabric, which is another reason why we're doing this. We're zhuzhing this. We're going to make it what we want it to be. This is how you can kind of take a 3-yard quilt and bump it up a little bit and make it a little more challenging for yourself, because this is going to be challenging. So anyway, for the first strips, they want you to cut 4, whatever size they want. I can't give you the sizes. Then they want you to cut 2 of this smaller strip right here. I'm going to cut the 2 at the size that they want, and hopefully I have enough left over to do what I need to do, which I should, because a yard is a yard. But remember, I'm not concerned about my binding, and this would be the fabric that I would use for that. So I'm not worried about that. So now I'm going to cut the 2 strips. Same thing, because these strips need to go in the same direction as everything else in order for this to be complete. So it's got to go in the up and down direction for this to look cohesive. Stay with me. All right, so I have cut what I needed for the smaller strip. Okay, now I have all of this left over, which is good, because I think I'm going to need to cut probably 1 more of each of the sizes of those strips, but I'm not 100% sure just yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this to the side, and I'm going to see what I have once I cut the rest of them and see if this is going to work. All right, this is my fabric number 2. This is my fabric number 3, in case I got that all confused. Make sure if you're going to cut this, power cut it just to make it faster. Fold the fabric in half and do half as many cuts as you would. Ooh, it looks like we've got some discoloration or some bleach or something right there. That's interesting. Power cut this, because there are a lot of the cuts that are the same width. And so just knock them all out. Make it easy on yourself. Cut half as many, but just fold your fabric over it and you'll be done in no time. Okay, guys, this could be the easiest quilt in this entire book, I'm telling you guys. But no, it's me. Now, you guys know how Tula Pink says neon is a neutral. I feel like animal print is a neutral. If you think about it like that, you guys will have some really funky designs that you guys just stumble upon on accident, because you use the rule that an animal print is a neutral. All right, this is my fabric number 3, and I'm just going to start hacking away at it. And I think I'm going to power cut this one too. I'm going to hit it with a little heat first, and then I'm going to power cut it, because there are so many. I mean, if you think about it, if the design is only one block, a lot of this stuff is going to be the same measurement, and so you might as well just power cut this and knock this out. Okay, so I'm going to take one of these strips, 2 of my fabric 2, and 2 of my fabric 3, and we are going to sew them. So first thing I'm going to do is take off the selvages because, you know, and there aren't any selvages on this strip, and this strip measures just a little bit longer than 36, and so I think I'm going to come up on an issue, and I'm okay with it. I know that it's going to happen. We're going to just address it when we get there. I think I'm going to need one more of that strip, and then, but we'll see. Let's just let it happen. First things first, take off these selvages and sew this strip to this strip, and then put them on either side of this strip. So I'm just showing you guys that I have laid, I'm going to lay these out and just show you how I sew them really quickly. So I've laid it out this way so that I know that when I flip this to this, I'm going to sew it down on this side. I want to be sure that everything is lined up at the top of this. We are trying to preserve as much as we can of these strips because I'm doing this in a crazy way because I had to have this fabric facing this direction. Because of that, it is causing us to have to just be careful about a few other things. So I want these all lined up perfectly here so that I really don't have to freshen up this side. You can, but you could freshen up this side if you need to, but I want everything lined up on this side. That's very, very important. So I'm going to sew this one down the side really quickly. So I have pieced these two together. This is very interesting looking. I'm really like tickled by this. I don't know why. I just am. I think it's an interesting color. Anyway, you know. So now I'm going to sew this to this guy and this to this guy. And once I do this, this is going to tell the story. I can do a little multiplication and figure out what we're going to do. This is so pretty. I am just tickled about how this looks. I know it's a little strange, but I also can see that we've got a little issue here. And so I'm sure that I would need some of that. So let's see how many I can actually get from this. And we'll go from there. All right, so from that strip, I was able to get 5 full pieces. And here's the 6th one, and 6 times 4 would have given me exactly what I needed. And had I have enough fabric right here, I could. So I know that I have left over this fabric. So what I'll probably end up doing is seam ripping this and putting that other fabric in there and then just cutting it down to size. I think that's what I'm going to do. First, I'm going to piece them all together. I'm going to get my 24 of these pieces, and then we will, then we'll figure out how we're going to piece together the last 4 that I'm going to need. All right, so I have 5 here, and then I'll have these left over, and we'll figure it out. We're playing it by ear. So this is what was left over from the strip. So I'm going to go on ahead and remove this with my seam ripper and just add it to this extra strip that I cut. And that's how I solved this problem, because I needed an extra 4, and that's how we're going to get them. These were just long enough to get what I needed, and even with the imperfect bottoms here. So like I said, I'm just going to seam rip this and then sew this extra piece on And again, I cut an extra one of those. And that's it. That's all I needed to get this done. And so I will have 24 of that block, which is how many that I needed. I'll show you the 24 in just a second. So, like I said, I made all the blocks that I needed, and you need 24 of this block. So I've got it, and now I'm ready to start working on the other piece of this block. And again, all of this happened because I wanted to make sure that these flowers were in this orientation. It's not difficult. You just cut an extra strip, and then I did a little seam ripping and put the last little piece in, and I cut it down. But also remember, I'm not using my fabric number 1 for the binding. Not doing it, not even thinking about it. I still have some fabric left over. We'll see how much is left over after I finish. It might be enough to do the binding, but I just wasn't planning on using it for the binding. So nothing strange here. We are just going to take our larger fabric 3 and more of our fabric 2 and sew them to one another. And we also have a partial strip assembly, and we need to get 48 tiny blocks out of this one. And so I'm going to sew all of these together and then get to cutting so we make a little guy. Nothing interesting about this. And make sure that you don't use anything directional, because that's just going to make your life, whoa, way harder. None of this is directional. None of this matters. Just sew it all together and call it a day. So now they're all pressed out. Every single block I've pressed the seams open. I don't even want to begin to make this more complicated. So every single thing is pressed open, and now I need to cut a bunch of tiny little pieces from these guys. I've got 2 full strips and 1 partial strip. Again, nothing is directional. Everything is just sewn together as per the directions. Nothing to contemplate, nothing to think about. Let's just get it done. So now I have a ton of these, and I'm going to split these into 2 piles because of our next step. So let's do that now. So here we go. I told you I'm going to take half of them, so they're split into 2 equal piles. And so I'm going to take this guy, and I'm going to take this strip, and I'm going to put it on this side, and I'm just going to sew down. So you probably know I love to have with no seams on the sewing machine, so I just went ahead and flipped that. But now I'm going to take this and I'm going to cut it, and see, everything is open. Everything has been pressed open. So I'm going to take this and we're just going to trim it even, and then I'm going to press this open. And so now we have this unit. Now I've pressed everything open, and now we have this unit. And from the other pile, I have no idea which pile I grabbed from. I'm going to assume it was this one. From the other pile, we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to sew it on the other side. All right, so now we have this unit all done. It's open, great. We're cooking with gas. Now we need to do another one, but instead of starting with the piece this way, we're going to rotate it, and we're going to sew the strip onto this side again so that we get an opposite of that. So now we have what we need. We have sewn a piece on this side. So as I am doing this, I figured I'm ready to speed it up. So this is a strip, one of the strips that you have, and I've sewn one on, and I'm just going to, while that needle is down, I'm just going to butt the next one up right up against it, and then we are going to drop that, and we're going to go. And then we're going to slow down, drop that needle down. You can backstitch if you want. It's really not necessary when you are quilting. I butt that sucker right up against that needle again. Drop that foot down, and we're going to just keep going. And then we'll just cut them all apart and press them because we do not have time for this. I was taking it apart and cutting each one and all. I'm ready to be finished so we can move on to our next project. So these are all this side right here. For the other side, you're going to have to rotate it around, but I'll show you that. So you need to cut the bottom and then trim to the top. So, and it's just a little bit, it's not a lot, but I'm going to line this up with the bottom. So that's that piece. Then we're going to just scoot it down and trim off the excess. And then we're going to scoot it down. And we're going to just trim to the space. And there's a little bit for the space. And so we're going to keep doing that until we get there. And we're going to do the whole thing for this strip. Then we'll do the other strip, the other side. So now I have switched it around. And now we are doing the other side here. So I've just got this turned upside down just so that it shows up on the other side. And we're just gonna grab another one and lift that foot and butt it right up against that needle. And this is much faster than what I was doing, which was sewing each one and then trimming it. No. We don't have time for that. Okay. And you just keep going until you fill up the strip. So the instructions on the next step want you to do this. They want you to take this little guy here, and actually I think this one's going to go this way. Take this little guy here and take this little guy here and put this in the center. So you're going to sew here to here, cut it off even, and then sew this one to this unit. However, because we are concerned about this actually being right side up, these flowers, what I'm going to do, this is what it's supposed to look like. Let's see. And then after you sew these together, you'll put this here, and this will kind of match up in a neat kind of way. But instead of doing that, I want to be careful. And so what I'm going to do is just start laying out the blocks the way that it is supposed to be here. So you're going to do all these, and then you'll sew that row, that column to this column, to this column, to this column. So instead of starting to sew this part together, I can see that this is going to be a half of a block right there. So I'm going to lay out that half a block first and actually make it. And then I'm going to lay out the next half, so on and so forth. I can tell here that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 blocks that need to be made for that first row. And that is precisely what I'm going to do. I am going to take and just make that first block, and so that I know that it's right side up. So this would be right side up. And then it's going to need a piece like this here, a piece like this here, and this piece is going to go here. So that's going to be my first block. I'm going to make this block, sew it together, and then work on my next block. How am I going to do that, you say? I'm going to take this, flip this over, sew it down. So I've sewn this piece onto this. Now I'm going to trim it to match. Now I'm going to open this up. The flowers are still facing up. I'm going to take this piece and sew it to this piece. So I have now sewn everything together. It's still facing upward. All seams are pressed open, everything. Now there are no seams. Actually, that's not true. These two need to match here. These two need to match here. Nothing needs to match in the center. I'm going to sew that together. This block is actually super interesting looking. I am very entertained by this color story that is super strange. I'm going to sew this to this. I'm going to throw 2 pins in so that these hit where they're supposed to. You guys know your girl likes to pin. So I'll pin this just like this, matching them up, and then sew it. So now I'm going to pull these pins. I'm going to press this seam. Am I going to press the seam open? You talk about something that does not matter. I don't know. Maybe. We'll see. You know what? I'm looking at this quilt assembly section, and turns out I could build this going this way. Each block would just be, I'll show you. Okay, so I did end up pressing the seam open. I don't know that I'm going to continue to do that, but I did what I did. So this block goes this way. The block that would be next to it, you just flip that puppy like this, and then like this. I don't know why I thought I had to build it. Yes, I do, because it looks elongated. I might still build it that way. Only reason is because you really want these areas right here. You really want these areas to line up. And so I know that it would be easier for me to line this right here up going this way than it would to be sure that they all line up going that way. Yes, I have overcomplicated this 3-yard quilt to the 10th degree, but I'm kind of digging it, and there's a reason to the madness. There's a method to it. So, shall we go down this way, or shall we go to the right? Let's go down. Let's just do it. Let's just build it as a row. That doesn't bother me. So, my next block that I'm going to grab, it needs to sit this way. So thank goodness we haven't put these on yet, because they need to sit right here, and they need to sit the opposite of this one. So we are going to put this way. That's going to go like that. And then this one will go right here. Wrong. This one will go right here. And this will need to be going up and down. Might as well continue off the one that we're using, which is not this one. Okay, here we go. Here we go. I think it's going to be this one here. I don't know. Either way, this one needs to go up and down like this. So we're going to be sure to flip this over, sew it, and then do the same thing that we did on that side. So I did the same thing. I have pressed all my seams open, and this will go just like this. And again, I think I'm just going to go on ahead and build this row this way, because I really want this and this to line up properly, and I really want these two to line up properly. And if I do rows, even with my pinning, I've met myself before, I can see how this could go left on me. So I'm just going to keep building the rows, and then I'll build another row, and then I will just pin whatever here, you know, not whatever, but it's not going to be a big deal when these come together, because it'll all kind of blend. Very interesting color story. I just wanted to show you guys before I move on here, that if I weren't going to use this here, it would simply just go here. And it's still in the proper orientation to just keep going. But I think it's really important to have these be spot on. And I don't want to be tugging and whatnot. And I might be able to do it, but I just think I'm more comfortable building this way than I am building it across. So I've definitely made the decision to build this in a column. Then I'll build the next column, so on and so forth. So we've got a good start here. I'm actually going to call it a night, and tomorrow I will finish this up. So I figured I'd pop back in before I go night-night because I decided to join these two together. And for whatever reason, it came out where the join, it looks continuous. And I'm not 100% sure why that happened, but I do want to just be really clear about how I'm sewing this together and why. So the next block needs to go, of course, up and down here. And remember, I'm doing this way because if I were to just sew this on and attach it to the two side pieces, it's very possible that this would be upside down on some of them. And that's not the look we're going for. This was a very specific fabric that I've always wanted to see in this shape, in this way. So forgive me for making this, you know, complicated, but if you have directional fabric and you are like me, a little crazy, and you want this to be in this orientation, like maybe you had some giraffes or something, then this is what you need to do. So let me just be very clear about the way that I'm sewing this strip. I lay it out this way, right? And I see that this needs to go this way. And you would think that I would just take the top of this strip and do this and fold it that way. But if I do that, I've got to go to the sewing machine and I've got to sew with this on top. And I don't want that. Why? Because you always want to be sewing with the smooth part with fewer seams on the sewing machine. So instead, the way that I've been laying this on this is this way. I go all the way up and then I put it on here. So when I go to the sewing machine, I flip it and I sew, and then I cut it off here. And I know that seems like a lot, but because it's matching up so nicely, I figured I better tell you guys just to make it make sense. And then after that, I can go on ahead and flip this over and it's not a big deal. So let me just take you to the sewing machine really quickly and show you guys. So again, this is right side up. I'm starting at the bottom. I'm putting that there, and then I'm just going to walk it to the sewing machine and sew down on this side. So just the way that it was, I've got the bottom here, and I'm just going to flip it over and line it up and just sew it down. I know this seems like a lot, but you know what? There's a method to my madness, and I want to show you guys what it is and how I'm getting what I'm getting, the results that I'm getting. So I'm just going to sew it down, and I'm going to do a little back stitch there for good measure, and now I'm going to show you me cutting it over here. I'm just going to push this up against this, butt it up against, make sure this line is parallel here. Hold it down, cut it, pull it away. Now, I'm going to go grab that piece over there, which you can see. So you can see that this is right side up. I'm just going to grab this piece, just like this, and we're going to fold it right sides together. And now I can just sew normally because the smooth part will be on the machine. And I like to do that because all these seams are pressed open, guys. And so you don't want any flippy seams if you can avoid it. You want as few as possible. Remember when I said I was going to go to bed? Should have gone to bed. So I had to do a little seam ripping. No worries. We are just going to seam rip that, flip it upside down, sew these to one another. Not a big deal. Just, yep, should have went to bed. So the reason why I had to redo that is because this block needed to be with this block, which is perfectly fine. Not a big deal. So we're just going to move those up. And this will go here, and the next one will butt up against it. And that will be this one here. It's going to go that way. This is going to go this way. And I will end up using the bottom of this again, which will probably line up with this. And that's how I'm getting that continuous look between those. Now, if I was really on my ball, I would find the ones that line up here, but that's a bit much. You know, that's a bit much. So we're going to just let this quilt live. Our flowers are right sides up. If you were to match this up, you would be the most couture crafter, the most couture quilter ever. I'm not saying it's not possible. I just don't know that I'm going to do it. All right, bye. I need to go to bed. So I was like, well, could I do it? Like, could I find where these match? Of course I can, because they're all right here. I'm annoyed. I have annoyed myself. I should go to bed. But now that I see that it can, might as well, right? We're couture crafters. This is kind of what we do. It's kind of our thing. We go the extra mile. We do the things by hand. We do the extra sometimes. So I'm getting on my own nerves. What time is it? It's got to be like 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm calling it. I'm calling it. I'm going to do this last little one here just so that you guys can see what that looks like when it goes continuously, when it just kind of works. And because there's so much going on here, because we've got such a fabric party, I'm not going to talk about it anymore because I'm so tickled by this fabric combination. But because there's so much going on here, it's probably not the worst idea to match up what can be matched up, just because of how much of a party we're having. All right, fine. I'm going to do it. I'm going to see if I can match up the things. And I'm going to keep matching these up too. So I've got the bottom of this strip, and I know because it's got the fresh cut there, and also I can just look at it and see that it continues there. So we've been cooking at this for a couple of days now, and which is fine, no problem, but it's really cute and funky, and I might actually turn this into an article of clothing. We'll see, because I like it that much. I would actually wear this. But anyway, I just wanted to show you guys that I am connecting them in columns, like I said, and this is the last column, and then we're going to put a lovely border on it. It looks good. It was tricky, you know, it just was tricky, just a lot to kind of keep in mind as you're going. But at the end of the day, it really is just one block. And if you were doing this with non-directional fabric, you will be cooking with gas. This won't take long, and you could probably do it in rows traditionally, because all it is one up, one down, one up, one down. What an interesting way to get this together. So now I'm just going to flip these right sides together and pin, pin, pin. I ended up pressing everything open, which is probably the first time I've pressed everything open. And it works out fine. Just make sure you shorten your stitch length a little bit, and I will give this a good final press, and we'll put the borders on and we'll be done. So if I haven't told you guys, this ironing board is my absolute favorite, especially for 3-yard quilts, the throw size, because it's like 60 inches or whatever, and it just makes borders so easy. If you want your borders not to be wavy, measure the border first. Measure the border first and then pin it on, and that will help you. If you just sew it on, it's probably going to be wonky and stretchy and all those things. So I am using Wonder Clips. Why are they upside down? Because I always stress putting the no seam side on your feed dogs. And so this is me doing the borders. We're almost done.